Okay, Hanne, the word is yours. I think you need to unmute.
That's correct, and it's quite early in the morning, and very good morning to you all. Both Norwegian, Nordic, and European friends of ITS Norway and the Nordic Plus Society, together with our Nordic ITS associations and the Baltics. We're proud partners in the Nordic Plus. My name is Hanne Breivik. I'm the CEO of ITS Norway. I have been in this position for 3.5 months, replacing Trond Hovland, as many of you I'm sure have met along the years. This webinar on the Nemu project. Nemu is an acronym for Nordic Ecosystem Mobility Unlimited. And for those who wonder what that means, it means seamless, integrated, and people-centric mobility in the Nordics. And I guess that would be much more difficult to make an acronym for. If I can change the slide, because it's a bit boring to look at this. The Nordic Council of Ministers, they have set some goals for sustainable development in the Nordics. Vision 2030. The Nordic region will be the most sustainable and integrated region in the world by 2030. That's the vision of the Council of Ministers in the Nordics. And doing so, we need to do things differently, because this is what flights and car hire offers us. An example from Momondo, and actually you can choose to go from where we are, in my case in Oslo, to anywhere, and it will search the most appropriate flight or car or hotel for you. But one thing is missing: public transport. And this is quite stupid, to put it in the very simple words, because public transport is the most sustainable way of traveling. Also, when you go on holidays and in other cases when you usually pick a flight, it's more appropriate if you could go by public transport and do your travel more environmentally friendly. So getting around in the jungle of train operators in Europe and worldwide is quite difficult. And in Norway, we have tried to work around that by this Facebook site named Togferie. That means holiday by train. And the numbers of members in this group is 75,700. And that means 1.2% of the Norwegian population is actually a member of this group. So there is a demand. People want to go sustainable on their travels. So what could we do instead of turning to Facebook for help? Yes, that's what Nemu is about to help us. Trying to deliver seamless multimodal travels, also by public transport. And in the project, as you will hear later, we have focused on the cross-border multimodal travels between Oslo and Copenhagen. And that means train and bus, and also the Helsinki-Stockholm-Oslo corridor. And that means a train, bus, and ferry. And partners in this project, along with Nordic Plus, is SFMCon, Matkaholko, and TUR. So Denmark, Finland, and Norway is represented, and we are funded by the Nordic Innovation. This is the agenda for today. The introduction you have just tried to manage through. And the next coming up is Cecilie Knibe Kroglund. She's State Secretary in the Ministry of Transport in Norway. And after her, Søren Sørensen, Lars Tore Karlsen, and Johanna Taskin will tell about the progress in the Nemu project. And after them, Sampo Hietanen, as I think you have met most of you before as well, is going to share his thoughts on how to speed up investment into mobility innovations in Europe. And followed by a panel discussion before we sum up, and we will end our webinar a little before 11 o'clock. So with no further ado, I give the floor to Cecilie Kroglund. Welcome to this webinar and enjoy.
Well, thank you, and thank you for inviting me to speak here today. As you said, my name is Cecilie Kroglund. I'm the State Secretary in the Ministry of Transport. I think maybe a related name for it is a Deputy Minister. My area of responsibility is rail and public transport, among other areas. And I find it very interesting that you are organizing this seminar on travel planning and seamless cross-border mobility in the Nordic region. We all know that traveler must find public transport as a high-quality transportation option. It has to be that to compete with passenger cars and air travel. And the service needs to be coordinated and integrated, allowing seamless travel across operators, I think also modes of transport and also borders. In Norway, we have made significant progress, I think, towards this, notably through the development of service in the state-owned company Entur, which you will meet later on. Entur collects the data on public transport, stops and prices and real-time information about public transport, and openly accessible platform. It is also provide basic services in travel planning and ticketing across Norway. The mobility market in Norway and other countries is facing several major changes that the government finds it important to address in a proper manner. Changes in travel patterns following the COVID-19 pandemic makes it necessary to develop new pricing models and more flexible tickets type beyond just a single period ticket. Travelers increasingly expect to be notified about, for example, delays, and they also want quickly to receive information on alternative travel options if and when incidents occur. Public transport is expected to change into more use of dynamic schedules, dynamic fleet management, and dynamic pricing. And at the same time, the sector seeks the emerge of new mobility solutions beyond the traditional public transport as e-scooters, minibuses, and also shared cars, potentially also autonomous in the future. And there is a growing demand for better web-based self-service solutions for planning and purchasing international train journeys. And there are benefits to gain from stronger efforts in developing seamless mobility and making better use of data. This applies both for travelers' perspective and in terms of traffic management also and capacity utilization. A fundamental prerequisite for seamless mobility is sound and standardized data management. Better utilization of data can improve services for travelers and offer significant opportunities for authorities and operators to manage capacity more efficiently. The government therefore aims to facilitate seamless mobility and better data management in the transport sector. And this government also finds it important to promote collaborative structures to ensure efficient interaction between players who shares data or participate in various mobility networks. And therefore, this year we have asked this state-owned travel planning and ticketing company Nemu to explore how we can collaborate better between public transport companies in Norway with a view to cooperate on data management and digital service development. And the topic here today on the seminar is seamless cross-border transport in the Nordic region. And the work that we are doing here in Norway to unite the public transport sector and use common standards for data exchange will also benefit the international passenger travel. In Norway, we base our system on European standards of data exchange. This makes it easier to develop cross-border solutions. And an exciting example of this is that Entur can now sell tickets from anywhere in Norway to Copenhagen. And this entire journey can be purchased in a single transaction, currently on web and hopefully soon on the app. And Entur plans to open source the code behind this solution, enabling others to reuse it afterwards. And in this way, Entur can help make it easier for rail operators to sell each other's journeys. And I think this example will be exciting to follow the next coming years. And the ministry, we are also working on implementing EU's new regulation on multimodal travel information system. And we are now working on to send out a consultation paper on to revise regulation after this summer. And we are also following closely to the EU's initiative related to the development of multimodal digital mobility service and the single digital booking and ticketing regulation. And all these initiatives, I think, contribute to building the future that we want, and a future which is easy to search for a pay for a journey across operators, across modes of transport, and across borders. So with that, I think I will leave you to the rest of the seminar. Unfortunately, I can't be in the whole seminar, but I wish you a good inputs and good discussions for the next few hours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cecilie. And if there are questions, are you able to, or do you have to run? No?
I can take one or two.
Mm-hmm. So, Søren Sørensen, please.
Yeah, hi, and thanks for the introduction to the approach from Norway. I'm interested in how did you come to the conclusion in Norway that the Norwegian state obligation goes further than the border? That means down to Copenhagen and to maybe eventually to other parts of the Nordics. Why did Norway see that as an obligation? Because it goes actually across Yeah, it goes further than that you would traditionally think would be a government responsibility. What is the rationale?
I think I don't know quite the history of it, but I think the rationale behind Entur is that it's not possible for every company and for every public service in the transport to collect data and collect solutions and build solutions, so that we take the responsibility or the opportunity to build open source source. But I don't know the history. I think maybe we not see it as an obligation, but as an opportunity to make it easy and to fulfill the government's goal to make mobility easy, and also to make people choose public transport.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. And in the chat, not a question, but a statement from Einar Bjerkvold in Entur. The most important factor for success here is open data and the use of a common data model to exchange data between systems without change of the data when importing. So data can be used across different systems. And I guess that's something that we all could nod to. And Marco Forsblom from ITS Finland, if I understood it right, Nordic ministries are preparing a common Nordic transport system strategy. What is the status of this strategy and also the role of data and digitalization in this strategy?
Well, I think Entur perhaps can tell more about it later, but we seek to base the system on European standards for data exchange, and as I said, we also try to make to follow up the EU regulations to be easy and also common. So some of this work is happening this summer.
Thank you. And I see no more questions in the chat and no hands raised. So thanks a lot to you, Cecilie Knibe-Kroglund, and thank you for participating in this webinar.
Thank you.
And now I will give the floor to Søren Sørensen.
Yes, I hear you. I'll just start my presentation. Do you see it?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so now we're going into talking more about the specifics of what the Nemu project is about, and a big shout out to the Norwegian government because it's basically the Norwegian approach that is the baseline for what we're doing in the Nemu project, and the nice gesture of allowing us to copy what they're doing in Norway, what Entur is doing, and do it elsewhere. So thanks for that, and let's dive into it. If I can get my screen to... There it is. Yep. Okay. I'll just go a little bit into more details about the Nemu project. It's not only this project. We also have an obligation to look for the next step, because we do have a mission in the Nordic Plus Corporation to support the scaling of smart connectivity solutions in the Nordic region. So there, the ITS organizations in the Nordics have actually come together, and we formed kind of a RIC which are looking into how we can make proposals for projects like the Nemu project that we're doing right now. And this is indeed also how the Nemu project came along. The vision is that in 2030 you should actually be able to roam freely around in the Nordics, like home principle, like we know from the smartphones. And we have this thinking that we have at least 4 national or regional mass players in the Nordics, and that people can actually roam freely. If you're from Denmark, you can travel to Finland, and you can go to Norway, and each place you can, from your Danish app, easily find the local mobility solutions that you actually want to purchase and use. So in that, we are trying to take away the barriers that currently exist, where every time you go to a new city, you have to start from scratch and figuring out how a ticketing system is working. So this is the vision, that if you're from Finland, you will see everything in Finnish and all in euro, in Denmark, Danish kroner, and in Danish, Swedish, and you get the point. So the Nemu project that we are now into the first year, we are started, it's 1 year old now. It's Matkahultu. Matkahultu is a Finnish mobility mass operator, actually. And the interesting part here is it's a private organization. And then we have Entour, which is pretty much a public-owned, it's state-owned, 100% state-owned organization. And then I'm in as the SFM-Con element as a project lead on this adventure. And it's all sponsored and managed by Nordic Plus and funded by Nordic Innovation. So the interesting part here is that we are actually also looking into whether it makes a difference that it's a government-owned entity that does these services that we're trying to do, cross-border services, or whether a private actor can do it just as well. So this is one of the tests that we're doing here. The other thing is that we actually a multimodal mobility travel living lab. And we're trying to, I think as one of the first, trying to use data from more than one national access point and see if we can make them work together to create common solutions. So we actually measuring the usability and interoperability of the data national access points, and I think Entour and Matkahultu will testify that it has some challenges. And that's basically what I'm going to say about the introduction, and then I would hand it over to Entour and tell a little bit about how far we are and maybe also the next step. So Tora, could you take over?
Yes. So let's take a look at what we've done at Entour so far. All right, can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about our status updates on seamless international travels at Entour. My name is Lars Tore, and I'm a product manager at Entour for our international sales team. So our mission statement was to get travelers from Norway to Copenhagen through self-service sales, and the timeline for this was to be able to do it within the 30th of April this year. And primarily it was from the Oslo-Copenhagen corridor, but we would like to just prove that it's from anywhere in Norway to Copenhagen, really. And as Entour is the neutral party in Norway, it's natural for us to do this in cooperation with an equal sort of entity in Sweden who had the same responsibilities that we do at Entur. So by connecting or going into an agreement between Entur and Samtrafiken in Sweden, we get the whole corridor from Norway through Sweden and into Denmark. And how does it work? So what we would like is that for a traveler to just go into our web page and hopefully our app later, and just plot in the journey planner to go from anywhere in Norway and to, for example, Copenhagen or one of the stops along that line, and then get back a travel suggestion, and we will automatically start to get offers, so we can have a minimum price to show for each travel, and then our system will split these legs, and we will identify which legs we can price ourselves at Entur, since we can price the rest of Norway, and which we will have to go abroad to other sales platforms. And then we will recombine these offers and make travel suggestions for the traveler. And once one of the travel suggestions has been chosen, we then do the same operation again, where we identify which of these we can reserve and book in our own system, and which we have to split out and have to book at Samtrafiken, since we don't own their inventory or their order system or sales systems, and they have a distributed model, and we have to split everything up. And we will do the same for distributing tickets, but afterwards but before that we also have the payment, and here it's important for the customer that this is just a single transaction. We don't want the customer to be able to see that we are integrating between systems, so everything happens in one transaction, and you just do a single payment in Norwegian kroner as you using the Entur app. And afterwards you have paid and it has been booked. We also do the same for ticket distribution, where we see which tickets we can generate and have at our system at Entur, and which we have to go to Samtrafiken to get their tickets. And the nice part of this is that we get their tickets. So it will be easy for the staff at the trains to see that this is actually a ticket for Øresundstoget or one of the other rails in Sweden when we get there. So it's not ambiguous for them to see that this is a ticket from somewhere else. And once you have gotten your ticket, you will also get your receipt at the same time, which will be in an Entur scheme, so it looks like it's actually from us and it's not split from several parties, and it looks official and you can be trusted. And then the tickets are received by email. And one of the nice parts as well is that the clearing afterwards is done directly between the two parties, so we can have a nice collaboration with Samtrafiken in regards to how clearing is done, which in other international corporations or collaborations, such as the Hermes network, is done usually in a 6-month interval. Well, here it's much more natural for us to have a closer cooperation and thus be able to avoid larger differences when having a clearing, which could be the case previously. And one of the things that we see emerging when we do this is that there's a product principle that a sales client should not notice our international integrations. And this is very important for everything we do, that all the integrations we do to other parties should be hidden beneath the systems of Entur, so that the sales client shouldn't notice that we are integrating or expanding to new markets and just using our already existing data models and API structures. This makes it much easier for a sales client to expand but it also puts on certain limitations, such that we have to use our own journey planner. We can't just use someone else's journey planner, because that would make demands on the sales client. You then them also be able to use new journey planners. But we'll come back to that. At the end of last year, we started to get ready to launch into production. And in early December, we had a timetable and journey planning for the Oslo-Copenhagen corridor in production. And by the end of December, we also signed the agreement with Samtrafiken and Entur. And luckily, we had started the development of this product much earlier, so it was ready to start for the certification process in early of March. This was a nice process between Entur and Samtrafiken, where we had several meetings and collaborated for finding the best solutions so we can get into production in a timely manner ahead of launch. And by the end of March, we had our silent launch, where we didn't tell anyone that we had everything in production, but we had 1 month where people would just have to figure out that we had launched a product, and by the end of April, we went into full launch with a press release. And here is also the first traveler using it, which is Søren. We received him a couple of days after we had launched into our silent launch. So what we can see in the post-launch is that we have moved about 12 to 13% of our sales, of our international sales, to the new system, where we previously had an integration with Silverrail. We now see that there's a growing amount of sales going in through the new system, both through sales, staffed sales, and also self-service sales. This is the current projection, where we had some tickets earlier, and it's just steadily growing. The current period, or the last period, hasn't been quite a month yet, so we are still looking at the steep increase. We had hoped that the numbers would be a bit higher, but we will come back to one of the reasons why we haven't gained all the traction that we wanted. One of the nice things that we see is that there is no increase in customer support tickets. By integrating into a well-known web client and a service that they know from before, they can already use the product that we have launched, and it's nothing new. And the same is with refunds. We have seen no increase in connectivity for having refunds, and they can do everything self-service. And we also see there's a large amount or larger amount of journey planning searches each day, according to the number of bookings that we do. And this means that the journey planning itself has a value. People like to actually just be able to look up the route and see what's available and when it leaves. The challenges that we face are timetable data. We want everything to be on a profile of Netex, the Nordic profile of Netex, and it's not all the countries that have data that's at least equivalent to this. So the journey for Europe to modern timetable data structures are not quite as mature as we would hope. We also see there is a lot of missing support for transmodel, and this is mostly in the booking perspective. This is doable. We can always map, or at least most of the time, but we would really like for there to be API specifications that are more closely related to transmodel concepts. And also we see that establishing agreements between parties such as Entur and Samtrafiken and other parties down in Europe is not something that the sector is really used to. We're used to having offline sales and reserving through, or using seat reserving through Hermes network. But while having a one-to-one relationship where we have direct integrations is mostly new for a lot of the companies, which means that establishing agreements is a more slow and tedious process than we would like. So the journey has just begun, and we would like for us to expand into multimodal international travels, while at the moment we have rail. And this is one of the things that the travelers want as well, because the local traffic are more flexible than the rail. We want new markets, as Denmark or Finland or Germany. And we also would also like it to be easier for Europe to integrate into the Nordic countries, and not just for the Nordic countries to be easier into Europe. And we would like to bridge the gap between Transmodal and OSDM, and here the Norwegian Ministry of Transport has made an effort to the suggested use of the OMCA IPS specification in the new TAP TSI. And as mentioned earlier, we would like to expand our efforts into new sales channels and retailers, such as app for Entur or other railway undertakings. That was us. Now over to Makthalter.
All right. So you hear me now, I guess.
Loud and clear.
Yes. Okay, so Matkahuolto status in the Nemu project. So first, a short introduction, what we are and what we are using in this project. So Matkahuolto, Matkahuolto's Trips and Tickets app already contains nearly all public transport in Finland, offers an address-to-address search using the same OpenTrip platform, OpenTrip planner that Entur is using, and with the same technology. And as I said, nearly all single tickets in Finland are integrated into our app. This means that the ticket systems, of course, Matkahuolto's own ticket system, then Onnibus, the biggest bus company, and the train company, VR, and then the biggest cities, Helsinki region and Tampere region, and also 15 other city regions using the Valtti ticket system. And then we also have integrated one demand responsive transport platform, the Finnish Vinka technology. So there are several payment methods, including employee benefit payment methods. Also, we offer billing service for organizations such as Finnish Defence Forces. And then just very shortly, that Matkahuolto's own ticket system provides single season and serial tickets for bus operators and local authorities, smaller city regions. And then also subsidized season and serial tickets for students and pupils. And we also have nationwide serial tickets for buses. So all the operators or local authorities that are using the Matkahuolto's season and serial ticket system, so they accept also the Matkahuolto's nationwide serial tickets. So this is what is the platform that we are using in the Nemu project. And now we are integrating also the Viking Line tickets into the Trips and Tickets app. And focusing mostly so that people living in Finland can travel to Sweden or, well, perhaps Åland also in between and back. And but naturally, Trips and Tickets is of course helpful also for finding connecting trips within Finland to or from the ferry terminals, even if they didn't buy the ferry ticket with the app. And then, of course, there is the Tallinn connection also that Viking Line is providing. So I guess we are going to integrate that at the same time. So where we are at the moment, so our plan originally was not, we were supposed to launch the service in 26. So we are well in the schedule. Now we have signed 2 contracts, the Viking Line resale contract and then the ferry gateway contract which needs to be done also if you want to integrate Viking Line's ferry tickets. Ferry Gateway, of course, is used by several other ferry companies. So even, for instance, Tallink, Silja, and other ferry companies. So that is quite handy. So you can use the same API then for other ferry services. Our timeline, as I said, the contracts have been signed, and there were some, as we just heard from Entur, that making these one-to-one contracts that quite take some time because the market has not really learned yet how to handle these kinds of resales contracts using the API sales. For instance, ferry companies, they are more used to agreeing like these very traditional travel agency contracts, and this is a little bit different when you are using the API. So there is still some things that the market needs to learn there. And then we have already started to define our development needs, what we need to do for the Trips and Tickets app in order to do this, and what we also need to do to configure the OpenTrip Planner so that it handles these kinds of travel chains correctly. So, and the launch will be somewhere in 2026. Let's see if we are already starting in the beginning of the year or the actual season really starts in the spring or summer. So definition of the development needs is already quite finished, and then the actual development starts in August, and then we will have some more news, I hope, by the end of this year. So what we need to do, so we need to figure out how the Viking Line service actually is visible in our app, and how people realize that you can actually do this with our app. And we are also planning to be able to search the prices with the Viking Club membership, which is provided through the API. And then we need to think what we need to do with the OTP. So the transfer time needs to be a bit longer for these kinds of services if you are going to travel with a ferry. So you need to have at least 1 hour there. So this is a little bit different compared to other public transport services, especially local public transport. Then in the booking and payment process, so what we need to do, what we have not had yet in our app, so the age group selection, cabin reservation, meal reservations, and then ask for the more detailed contact and personal details, what are required when you are booking a ferry trip, and also need to figure out a little bit that how we convey the important service info and terms for the ferry service. Also, we need to change our cancellation policy, and we need to handle different time zones. So I think this is about it. So our actual development really starts in August. So then we will have some more news later this year, maybe in the next webinar. If you have some questions, so I'm the project manager of this project at Matkahuolto, but also Tuomo Kinnunen is very much part of this project in Matkahuolto. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and could you just for the benefit of us who do not understand Finnish, Matkahuolto, what does that mean in English?
Well, travel service maybe could be a good translation, or travel care. Huolto is something like taking care of something. So,
Okay.
So travel care might be something, but you can just call us MH, as I said in our first slide. I know it's a little bit difficult to pronounce, matkahuolto for foreigners, but matkahuolto is, if you haven't noticed, so matkahuolto has started to provide its parcel services in Sweden. So there where we try to learn people to use the MH. So that is also possible.
Okay, cool. And we have a question. From Marco. We're just taking a few questions here related to the presentations, and then we'll leave the more general things for discussion in the panel. I think there's one here from Marco. How does Entur collaborate with private mobility service providers, and what kind of opportunities or challenges have you met when integrating commercial services with your own services? And are there some hopes Matkahuolto has when collaborating with PTAs? What are the most important ones if you think Nordic level services roaming? Do you get it? And Tore, can you, Lars, can you say a few words on this?
I can at least take some of the first part on the private mobility service providers. So we at Entur have mostly cooperation with the public service providers, and some of it is through legislation, like with rail, and some of it is a public-to-public cooperation with local traffic. And there, the incentive for cooperation is much higher, and also because of everyone having to do it exactly the same thing, the cost reduction is great when you can have a single service. With private mobility service providers, such as express buses, they are usually interested in a cooperation or in a collaboration, but they are not someone that's usually willing to change their APIs or the way that they do things. They're like, here is what we have, and you can use it and sail, but you will have to do everything yourselves. While with local transport and with railway undertakings, it's more of a two-way collaboration. And this is what we see as well with shared mobility, such as scooters, where there's an inherent reluctance to take on new APIs or new specifications to have a better integration between systems. So I think we are just starting to get some traction, but there is still some road ahead.
So I just wanted to understand that a little bit further. So the private operators, does that both goes for the plan part, or is it more the procurement or the selling part that
so
they have this?
Inside Norway, everyone is mandated to give your timetable data to Entur as a national access point. But they're not the rail, like express buses are not mandated to have the sales through Entur.
Okay.
So we can do the journey planning, but we need this commercial agreements for selling.
Okay. Johanna, any reflections from Marco?
Yeah. So I have to say, well, it's when two private companies like Matkahuolto and Viking Line are cooperating. So even though, well, there were some things that, well, maybe Viking Line needed to learn how to make API resale contracts, but still there are like two private companies. So it's quite clear that this is a service that the travel service provider needs to pay for, a sales service. So this is what we think is like good and normal in when two private companies that are cooperating, which is not the case with PTAs, where you don't get these kinds of deals. So we need to get the money then, otherwise they are not providing a commission normally. So that is, I guess, what Marco referred to here. So this is the difference with private and public PTAs. Well, there are some public PTAs that are offering some kind of commission, I guess, but normally that's not the case. So this is, of course, something that then, if you are trying to do this kind of service, so then you need to find the revenues somewhere else to cover the costs of selling and integrating certain services. But of course, these bigger public transport PTAs are very important in the travel chain. So if you want to do the travel service, then you just need to offer them, because otherwise you cannot provide the whole trip, for instance, from Helsinki or to Helsinki or through Helsinki, or the Turku region, which are important services if you're considering the ferry travel chains going out from Finland, for instance. So this is a situation that we had, and we of course hope that some development happens there. So there could be some kind of a common understanding about the kind of the commercial agreements. Otherwise, well, we are still using GTFS data. We are not in the NetX Trans model yet. This is something that we will start doing at some point, but as the Finnish data currently mostly is in GTFS format, so then we would have the same problem that Entur is having with Sweden, that all the data is not there yet. So we need to follow the flow of the Finnish data market, so to say. Yeah, so this is where we are, and yeah.
Yeah, and I think we can already say that we have a technical workshop in August, where we will see how much that you can steal from Entur, so that to go further into the to the NetX world at some point in time. Marco, did we answer your question? Just let us know. And Hannah, you have raised your hand.
Yes, because Sweden is not that active part of this project, and the travels, they go to or through Sweden. So Lars Tore and Johanna, could you please tell us a little bit? Lars Tore, you touched into it, but how do you ensure that Sweden is not the missing link in this puzzle?
So we have tried to the best of our ability to be on the service part, so we can help them to move along to the data quality that we need. And we have some other arenas where we can collaborate, such as Odin, but the progress has been slow, and the structure in Sweden is different than in Norway, and they also have just launched their new ticketing platform, the national distribution system. So their efforts have been placed somewhere else, and it's difficult to see like how it will be transformed over time. But we believe that the common goal of seamless integration with the Nordic countries is something that everyone wants. So in the long run, I think we will get there.
Was that question also for me?
Nice try, Johanna. Yes.
So that how do we ensure that we will also get the Swedish travel services in our service?
Yeah,
Did I
because I guess a few people are staying at the harbor when they reach out with Viking
Yes.
Line, so they want to go further.
Yes, well, this will be then the next step. How do we get there? And of course, we are then following closely what Enter is doing and how Enter and Samtrafiken are solving this issue, and then trying to copy those things. Yeah. Of course, we will start doing that, but we are not there, so we are going forward stepwise in this case. And then there was a question. Yeah.
No. Go ahead, Johanna.
Yeah, I noticed that there was question to us, that is the MH app limited to use by MH customers, or is it some kind of an open solution that, for instance, Viking Line could also provide matkahuolto tickets inside their own Viking Line app? So we provide also our own single ticket API for third parties to sell the matkahuolto's single tickets in our ticket system. So this is because this is obligatory in Finland to provide the single ticket API. So we do that ourselves also. So of course it could be possible for Viking Line to sell our single tickets as well. What we don't do, we don't offer an API for the whole offering of the Trips and Tickets app. So we have integrated, of course, the other ticket services. But we offer only the API for our own single ticket system. So if I understood the question right, so I hope I answered the question in the chat.
But isn't it so, Johanna, that the Viking Line also, the way that we are approaching Viking Line as being part of a multimodal travel chain, that's kind of new to them. Whereas before it's been seen as that's something that they don't really are involved in. So we actually adding something to the quality of their services. We hope.
Yeah, I think they are very, and the cooperation has been very nice, and they are very happy that somebody is selling their services. So they have not yet kind of thought that they would start doing the same. But of course, it is possible for them to start selling all kinds of. But then thing is that if they would want to actually do the same, then they would also need to do all the integrations to all these different transport services within Finland. So this is of course something that we concentrate on, and this is what we try to do. So to integrate all the different services so that not everybody needs to do that. Yeah.
And Jenny, how are we doing on time? And Johanna, there's a question from Johan Wiklund. Do you get GTFS data from Viking Line through Ferry Gateway?
Yes. And we have had nice discussions, and also Entur has been discussing with Ferry Gateway that if they could start providing NetEx data at some point. I don't know how those discussions are moving forward currently, but I think that's something that will happen at some point in the future anyway. So this is also.
That's definitely one of the success criteria for our little project here. That's it, that we persuade the Ferry Gateway to go NetEx in a Nordic profile style. So that's our ambition. Let's see how we get there. Jenny, how are you doing on time?
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting discussion. I hate to interrupt it, but I think we need to move on a little bit in the program as well.
Yeah, but that's fine. I think also we have kind of exhausted the chat for input, so we can leave the rest for the panel and just continue this discussion there. So over to you, Jenny.
Yes,
Or-
that was obviously not my cue, but I take the cue and I will actually give the word to Sampo Hietanen if he's with us in the webinar. Sampo, are you with us?
I am with you in spirit.
No, you're with us in spirit and in sound and in vision. Very good. And then I just pass the ball on further to you, Sampo.
All right. So my job is to shock you all by doing all kinds of bold proposals. Probably many of you know my background. I've been doing MAS for quite a while with MAS Global, and all these problems of trying to find in different modes in different countries with different types of players are very, very familiar with me. So after MAS Global, that was it's been a year, and one of those things that I've done is try to figure out what should we do to our, let's see, at the same time I'm trying to get the screen share. Let's see if that works. No? Yes? Can you see anything now?
Yeah, something. If you can make it large, then that's great. And your picture just froze, but I think that was just your internet. But we hear you loud and clear.
What screen am I sharing? What do you
Now
see?
you're seeing. We're seeing not the full presentation mode. So if you click there, we should be able to see.
Do you see it now?
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you, Sampo.
So I've been doing all kinds of things, but one of the most interesting ones is trying to figure out what should we do to our dear Europe in order to actually take a bit of leadership, and what would the actual actions be like. And it was an interesting few months trying to talk to a lot of people from academia, especially from automotive industry and such, that what would it take. Maybe as one of the backgrounds why I did it, I could claim that in Europe there are not many people that have talked to more big investors about mobility than I have. It's some few thousands that I have, including all the big ones. So I should hopefully have learned something why they have or have not mostly invested into mobility, especially in Europe, and what could be done to it. So bear with me. That the basic paradigm is that, believe it or not, and I know in some places I'm not allowed to show this kind of picture because it's too scary to show that we're actually shifting from the era of the car, especially actually car ownership, into the era of mobility. This is maybe one of the problems that I see in Europe, that this is supposedly a too much of offensive or too big of a picture to see, because we are worried that, hey, you cannot say that the car industry will be suffering. The car industry does not need to be suffering. The car industry can prevail, but they need change. It would be, I think, very naive from us to think that the mobility would not change from its structures due to the digital disruption like any other fields. So this is maybe the assumption. Now, the right side will need huge investments, just like the left side. You didn't build car manufacturers or anything with just small money. If you want leaders in this, it needs a lot of investment, and it needs private investment as well. Demand exists, but the industry itself is not providing services at the moment. This is just one of the figures of what people really want. They are keen to find out integrated, seamless, smooth, convenient solutions that combine all their mobility. If we take the other one at MAS Global, we did a big survey on city people in Europe, and about 38% of the people are actually actively looking for an alternative to their car ownership, which means that in Europe alone, we have 70 million cars that are waiting to get off the streets, but we as an industry are failing to serve them with an actual alternative. Now, in my books, EU has everything it takes except for actions. Our actions are not in comparison to the actual dilemma or the opportunities as such. Actually, for this, I went through the EU programs and goals for both for digital and for mobility. And when I looked at the status analysis, it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I said, yes, we're no problem. We know exactly how things are. Then I looked at the goals of what we want to achieve, and again, I said, yes, EU, we're going to make it. This is very good. And then I looked at the actions, and I had to say I was laughing a bit because they're in no comparison to what we're actually trying to aim. Having all kinds of things here and there are not really the ones that will get us to taking the leadership. If we look at the big picture, and look, I'm coming into this all the time from the uh, private investment, big money point of view. And I know that's also offensive in some ways, but however you look at the world, if we want to be leaders in this, it means we'll have to create leaders into this field, which means big private investments. No other chances have survived or succeeded so far in this. And it's those things that will drive the field. Now, what Europe is now facing is as a continent or our industry is still trying to struggle with electrification, whereas the rest of the world, this is already running business, and the actual money goes into AI, AVs, drones, and definitely super apps, and those are the ones that will change it even more dramatically. In Europe, I do not see a big flow of money to big players that will actually create these big things. Electrification, in a way, you could say, if you look at the big risky tickets, that's already gone as a field. So we're trying to come back at the rest of it. Now, I know this is a gruesome picture that I'm painting, but at the same time, EU is the ideal leader for mobility transition. We have by far the best public transport network. We have also all the other types of mobility services very widely spread around EU. So the components of actually building the era of mobility exist over here. We have the most advanced consumers. Connectivity is one of the best things that EU ever brought, is that we can actually use it from country to another without fear, and they're very fast, the networks as well. We have the R&D. I think you've also heard this, that a lot of the innovations actually come from Europe, but they're monetized left and right. So either in US or somewhere parts of Asia. And yes, also we have a strong automotive sector. It's a good thing to build upon. And it's also the scare factor that what if that goes away? What happens to our economies in the whole of Europe? But let's face it, today EU market is uninvestable. And the reasons are quite simple, and actually fair to say that some of the items that were discussed today are part of it. The market's really fragmented. Public sector is dominant. And this is not just that public sector is dominant, but it's unclear because you do not know in mobility where do they go, how much will the public actually expand to. So it's very hard to invest private money into somewhere where you have this public risk of what if they're going to do this with public money, what if this and this is happening, which also means that we're lacking B2C big providers in mobility. And the one thing that we have are the EU projects, EU pilots that are scattered around everywhere and definitely do not bring about big leaders or big platforms, big leaders, big digital giants that we'd actually also need in Europe if we want to be leaders in this. In one way, taking on football terms, I see that EU has the best players. So we've got Messi's and Haaland's and everyone there. And we're telling them that stay on your own side. Everyone, let's just defend and try to take all the hits from that are coming with AI and AVs and everything from and try to stall them as long as we can. That never was the winning formula. So what we need is definitely bold actions, some kind of things that, okay, the rest of the world cannot ignore. It's painful for me to see in some of the international tables where EU Europe is ignored as, okay, nothing really interesting over there, so let's just pass it on and go to something more interesting. At the same time, if mobility changes, it's not necessarily for the good or bad. It's change. And now is the time to determine how it looks like. And let's face it, the things with AVs, the things that are coming, they're not built for the, let's say, the ideal that we in Europe have for our cities. Now, what should we do? And these are pretty known to all of you. Harmonizing regulations, scalable business models, enhance regulatory clarity, support interoperability, reform public procurement, develop model markets, foster cross-sector collaboration. Probably if I'd see your faces, you'd be nodding, yeah, this is true. And this is, we say these on a high level, and we all know this, but what are the actual bold, hairy actions that are done? And those I see very few. So I dare to do a bit of proposals myself. What we need is models and something where the user gets everything, the market is booming, and society also gets its goals. Sustainability, less congestion, and so on, better cities. And this is where we need to do. Now, okay, if we know that we are not having big, huge leaders of mobility coming from Europe, just like car manufacturers, if you think that those were born out of completely free market, think again. They've been natural creations with a lot of public money. With everybody knows that Renault is a French champion, Volkswagen is from Germany, and it didn't happen by accident or with smaller things. It was a decision. And so was for example, Airbus. We decided that, okay, if we need to be in this needs huge capitals, and we need to create some of the champions into the global markets. Now, I know for very painful truth that the mobility factories are also very costly. The one thing that I see disregarded in all of this is the cost of UX. I still see a lot of presentations where many of the providers, they tick that I have this provider, I have this feature, I have this and this. None of those ticks to me are worth anything. They're not worth anything at all, because if the UX is not brilliant, smooth, and the best in the world, the features are not usable. People are very cautious of this. I've used this one example of us with Wim. We put a Tier Boy and Lime as micromobility into same app and thought that people would love it. And we got a lot of people excited about it, but no usage really. And we thought that maybe the whole promise of everything in one is not that big, until we actually looked at the data a bit more and realized that the actual unlock time was around 5 seconds. It took us a lot of money and time to get that 5 seconds below 2 seconds. And only then were we able to even see if this feature actually made any sense. And yes, it did. People loved it, but not before we could get below 2 seconds. So that's why I kind of am against when somebody shows what kind of features they have in something, because if the features nowadays, if it's not good, then you should not even put it out. We take the example, more or less 1 or 2 modes that Bolt is doing, and Bolt out of the ride-hailing companies is by far the most efficient, and they have about 500 coders every day looking at this. So if you're not planning for something like that, think again about the scalable UX that you're doing. This is just gruesome reality a bit. So what if we'd have what if we do it in a different format? We'd try to really create the European big players using public and private ownership. I know this is very weird coming from me. Believe it or not, I've tried to think of all kinds of ways. I've tried to ask around anywhere what could actually trigger big investments coming into Europe and European players also. And probably the right or the fastest route to actually getting these things going is that the public side actually takes initiative. And I know this is very weird coming from my mouth, but you know, sometimes you need to be more of a realist than anything else. So I know that there's a lot of sleeping money within this industry. We are, if you look at telecoms, if you look at utilities, energy companies and such, they're all kind of looking for should they go and when should they go and how should they go into mobility. But they don't do small checks. They're used to actually putting billions into something. And there's nothing where they can actually put a big investment into. And this creates a bit of an issue. There's big money going in there, sleeping capital, but we cannot really use it with the current small things here and there. We did this like in Airbus. So what if, and you can definitely oppose and find better ways, but this is the best way I found out of actually creating digital champions in mobility within Europe. So what would happen if today in EU, using any of the tools, whether it's EIB or something else, would say that we are going to invest into three to five different big moves, big companies, 1 billion each, where that 1 billion can represent maximum of 20% of the capital invested inside. Creating companies, at least minimum of 3, that are doing consumer-facing multimodal services. This is not manufacturing another car, has the potential for global scaling and takes on technology leadership, meaning AI and whatever is in their strategy path, to really create those that are actually coming from here. Even as today's, I would say it's part of defensive strategy that we would have these here. I know this sounds a bit weird, but my guess is if we do this, announce it, there would be a couple of calls in Germany within a day out of this announcement, same in France, and hopefully in the Nordics as well, to create those champions in these regions, which is just good. We actually need also, because mobility is an ecosystem, but an ecosystem more or less tends to need these gravity points that we do not have. And I'm really sad actually to say that our car industry cannot perform this. And it's been tried and tried, and they're struggling now really to get back on the whole electrification. They don't have the capacity or the needed capital to actually pull this through. So we do need this if we want these winners one way or another. In a way, this is a fast path to it. It's not good enough to actually just do this, because if you don't do regulatory measures, I'll come back a bit on that one, ensuring fair access so that you can actually do the multimodal services, so that if we create these giants, then that they can actually do their services, which means open APIs. It means that the iOS of mobility needs to be the European public transport systems, but it really needs to be an iOS so easily integratable like this, like Google Maps, I would put it. There would need to be tax reforms and so on and so on. But in a way, at least then we'd have big companies shouting for this, that we need it. Okay, oops, I went backwards. Yes. And here just to show that, yeah, I thought about a bit also on the steps, how to do it and how to make it happen. I know this is a very bold, daring action, but at the same time, I would say that we need them. Another one is something that pains me because I didn't really realize how the market will probably go before a bit too late. And this comes from the realization that we are the most arrogant industry in the world, probably, because we tend to think that everything is in mobility. And I was actually answering a doctorate from Sydney University, where they were thinking that what else can be integrated into MaaS or mobility services. And I thought that's a very arrogant thought, to think that we are everything integrates to mobility instead of us actually being integrated into the rest of the world. So my claim is that we actually need double integration. First, we need to integrate all the mobility into one simple actual UX. And only after that can we actually go to the other sectors and really go after what would they need out of this and how would they use mobility. We, if anything else, we're the natural embedded feature instead of being a standalone apps of our own as such. There's some more reading about it, but I'll show some actual user cases. And these are not just silly thoughts. These are actually things that the projects are needed. I know because they're the LOIs and such are done out of all of these. So let's take World Cup of rugby or something else, where as a part of your rugby experience, you have mobility here, where you don't have to worry about anything. All France in this case is open to you with a simple actual subscription. And yes, the prices are actually pretty much what would have been the commercial prices of them as well, and quite in demand. Another one, every insurance company needs to give courtesy cars. Now, at the moment, the car is the only thing that they can give because nobody offers them already the first integration that, hey, what if you'd instead of a car, you'd offer mobility options? Good for user, good for that business, and good for society as well. Or that instead of your company leasing car, and this is starting especially in Belgium a bit, but they're not really that smooth yet, that what if instead of your company car, you actually get a quota of CO2 per month, use it in anything you ever wish. Yes, all the cars and such, but only as to per limit. Okay, so what should be done to this? I think this is more of a policy issue that the whole industry, but from the public side also starts to think a bit differently. That the goals are to embed everything, embed mobility in everywhere. In business terms, I think that the go-to-market strategy for mobility will be a bit like in financing. Klarna didn't go with Klarna first. It went into all the other sectors and offered that, hey, if we develop this easy finance for you, would you offer that to your clients? And so they did. And the same applies to mobility, that we need to go there. I can tell you a funny incident. David Hensher, who I wrote this article about MAF with, he went in Australia and looked at what the number one industry or sector for mobility as a feature would be. And strangely, it was actually the church. They would need it the fastest out of everything. For this, the options of what to do are two. How to boost this. The other one is like in Italy and in some parts of Australia, what they're doing or planning to do is that you go for incentivizing the markets. So you put some money into the markets to kind of puppeteer the market development, make it easier for investments. I know that, for example, in Italy, the money that they've spent in comparison to the private investment that they've gotten into mass services is in very good relation. So relatively little money and a lot of private investments, because the insurance companies and many others, they saw that, okay, now this is the time we have to go into this. Second would be, and this is a very, very, very scary proposal, because I know that if you create out of public players something, they tend to expand that idea. But if we do this kind of a player that just integrates, stays on background and allows an easy access, but stays really on that path and enables actual companies doing the UX and going forward with it, it could speed up also the actual development. Because now the fragmentation of getting all the bits and pieces in mobility is so hard that with this one you might lower the barrier for it. The big problem of this is that I've too often seen public entities that get this that okay, stay in the background, do this, and for some reason every monopoly tends to expand it a bit too much, and then it becomes a investment hindrance. Like actually in reality, if we look at the Nordic markets for private investment, it's the worst in Europe at the moment. It's very hard to invest into anything in mobility in the Nordics because of very strong players. Good, really actual services being put out there, but for private investments, not much there. Third one is around AVs. AVs at the moment, if we look at US Waymo a while ago, took 5 billion more. Others are pushing for actual real global winners out of this. And what EU is doing is one bus here and there in projects, but nothing really investable. No one would put that kind of investments into something where a city PT buys one bus here, one bus there. At the same time, we'd probably want in Europe that the Waymo model of just taxis would not be the winning model of all this. We all know where that leads into. So what if, and I know this is also a very big one, glad I'm not a politician because I know that this is virtually impossible. What if we take a couple of mid-sized cities and take away all the bus type public transportation totally? Also, in most of the countries, we have these social transports, so different types of taxis or such that are leading to errands or hospitals, non-emergency, and so on. We take this markets and put some extra and say, okay, now we want different types of AVs covering this area to really jump directly into the future instead of putting a bit of an add-on and really try it out how that would look like in areas this and that. The good part of this is that to be investable, even mid-sized cities would be, because if it's a scalable market model, they would be investable from private perspective. Of course, the downside of this is that it's very hard to do and get, because I know that there's a lot of different agencies. It is spread out market and very hard for competitive reasons to say that, okay, we'll take out all the buses, and what if the circulation is such that you already have a 3-year contract, and so on and so on. But this is what it would take to actually get the investments in private side to work on more of European model, which I see is more based on shared vehicles, bigger vehicles, combining them to hubs that are then the train stations or similar. This is what we are after. Just that this vision, this ideal is not investable with the current structure that we have. If we do not create such markets, it will not on its own become investable. The fourth one is more or less a thing that if we don't do this, forget about the rest. Because if we do not create the retail market for trips, the biggest advantage that EU has will not be used at all. We have all the good services that exist out there. At the moment, they are very hard to integrate. And trust me when I tell that this is the biggest problem for landing the big enough checks within Europe for multimodal mass, however you want to call it, because they're scared of this. This is a risk where even the big risk VCs cannot take, because this kind of a binary risk of are they usable in these and these formats in these and these cities is just not something that they can pair. And Johanna already mentioned the bad word that everybody seems to hate. It is part of the fair, reasonable, non-discriminatory contract that needs to be defined. If we want to create a retail market, I actually like the whole idea of retail market, because it kind of tells that, there's retailers, those retailers that you need to live in every part of the whole ecosystem. And it seems that nobody dares to say what a fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory contract really means, because that also takes into account what is the minimum commission out of somebody reselling a service. And this, especially in the world of monopolies, I know that they have a hard time getting through this, because they're also given this, and it's part of public side. So in order to give them also some clarity, it would make sense to determine this. In my books, if we do not do this, the rest we can really forget, because the whole multimodal services are not usable. You cannot do all of this. It actually doesn't take that much. If you start from user rights, they did a very good regulatory work in Finland. They also did a very good one in Italy in order to get these things going. There are not really huge barriers. It's just taking on a bit of political will, and then also making sure that these things are enforced as such. In my books, we are missing out on a lot if we're not doing this all the time. So, transitioning from era of cars into mobility, EU has what it takes, but we're lacking the bold actions. with all this, EU is not producing category leaders that could actually provide, be the ones that actually we can look for in the next coming decades. The car companies will not be this. And let's face it, a big chunk of our wealth in Europe lies on that the big car industry is out there. That's a fact as such. If we don't do these bold, visible actions, like putting big players out there, we're going to be ignored. And these bold actions need to be actually done now, instead of just waiting and playing this defense game more and more. And to recapture what I would propose, and more or less all of these, preferably, of course, you can dream, can't you? Is that let's create those big digital giants that are the European format of these big things is that there is public involvement into them as well. Also, because this is a scattered market, putting public money into it is a reassurance for the big investors that, okay, we dare to do this. Like I said, it's not ideal. I would not like it. But if somebody has a better idea to create digital champions in this, I'd be more than happy to get it done. Taking on mobility as a feature more into central roles. So our job is not to create these things to the end user, or not just that, but it's even more to create services for the other industries, other sectors to actually utilize mobility as part embedded into their services. It's actually weird that grocery shops and such do not have mobility in their apps yet, but it's because we haven't offered it to them. Big market trials when it's about disruptive technologies and create retail markets for trips. Those would be my recipes. Jenny, am I good on time for stopping right here?
It was finding the right screen. There you go. Yes, very well. Excellent. Thank you so much, Sampo. I presume there are some questions. No one has a question to Sampo after this presentation. I'm not saying shocked, but
I'm pretty sure everybody's shaking their heads that, okay, that's too much. But yeah,
that's also,
that was the whole idea of this.
But that's also a question to ask and to say, okay, we're shaking our heads. Søren, what do you say?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you, Sampo. And I think you have some very good observations that we cannot pull it up our own hair. I just took a note on ChatGPT and asked how much has Tesla got from the US government, and it's around 15 to 16 billion of dollars.
Yeah, exactly.
This is how the private enterprise in US works. It's funded by government.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't scatter it in the thousands. They already very early on pick up few winners. I hate that, but at the same time, it seems to be more effective.
Yeah. So I was just trying to see if I could get a more grasp on what it is that you are looking for. I would guess we are talking on EU level, and you're talking about 2 or 3 regions or something like that, or to have some kind of competition going. But is it the ground version of Amadeus that you're thinking about, or is it like a hotels.com for ground transport, or what is it that you are? Because it's I see it, I hear it. It's a service company. It's not another rental company that has assets.
Yeah, this is a very good question. And in reality, in all fairness, I didn't want to overly describe how the company should look like. Kind of just very broad criteria that they have to be consumer facing, they have to have a low global scale, they have to be in tech leadership. How I perceive this, one could be, like you said, the ground transport booking.com or however done. One could be a big AI giant out of this. So I wouldn't want to overly describe it, just at the parameters that it needs to be in this space. And no, we don't want to put these billions into another car company manufacturing cars. So they really need to be digital. But other than that, I see that that's an opportunity. I would see that probably having a very clear payment background into this could be one of the options. But I would leave some room for the actual investors to actually come up with the reality. And the US way, and when I was doing this report, I interviewed a lot of people, and many said that please don't get the public side into the cap table. Do it like in US. So the government has given Tesla that much money, but they have 0 shares. Same applies to the military force and NASA. They do these humongous tenders to actually grow some of the large digital companies. If you think that Waymo hasn't been getting anything from the government, also not true. They do get a lot. Just that the US way is that the government is not part of the cap table. Now in Europe, I think that our model has been more that the public side stays on the cap table, preferably stays, and that's why I said that it's 20%, that it stays as part of it, but is a minority shareholder. If we look at the car companies, this has been the success formula. We can say whatever, but they have been a success story. Same applies to a few others. And if we look at many of the national heroes, that's also the reality, that there's a strong ownership also of the public side. And in this case, that kind of gives reassurance for the other private investors that, okay, hey, we dare to do it.
Okay. Other questions from the audience?
I think Marco had hands up before me, but did you decide not to? Or
Yes,
shall I just-
actually, I can ask. Thank you, Sampo, for this presentation. I guess that you have presented this in different kind of forums so far, and it is quite ambitious vision or even a dream. What kind of feedback have you got? Is this too big dream to come true?
I've been surprised because the first proposal, actually, that we'd really start with these giants and really create the digital champions in Europe, I think that that's a bit over the board. And okay, it's, I can say that, but it's not really realistic. But strangely, that has been taken up best on political scenes and such, that, okay, we need these visible actions. And if we create these big giants, they could not be overlooked on global scale. This would be a real thing where the US and others would have to take a stand that, okay, hey, they're actually doing something, not just fiddling around. And it actually seems more and more realistic and more than I thought. Probably it is because in Europe we have been lacking. Everybody wants to stay on this broad, very abstract level, and we haven't seen too many of bold, big proposals that are not easy to do. So I've been surprised how positive this has been. I just had some correspondence with one of the big universities that more or less educates all the big bosses of the German car manufacturers, and just got a message from them that we need to put this out into Europe, publicize and really start pushing for this. So more positive than I would have expected, put it that way.
Yes, thank you. And I really like that Søren's point that US has invested quite a lot of those companies, and maybe you could even add one slide where you describe this amount of money they are investing in public money in USA.
Good point.
Yeah, just for the just double check you on Waymo. Actually, Waymo is getting its financing from Alphabet, from its parent company.
They are.
So I think Tesla is the one who has taken most honey from from the U.S. taxpayers.
But remember that also Tesla money is not investment money, and they've been also only looked at afterwards. There are reasons why they can roam with Waymo in Los Angeles and San Francisco and so on. So it's not always money visible like that.
Yep. Good. Is that a new hand, Johanna?
Yeah. I just wanted to comment that the public ownership is I think a very smart idea. and might be a big dream, yes, but actually, as I've also been through this trial as Sampo, so I know the difficulties very well. So actually, yeah. So I think we have learned quite a lot, and I think those are quite good ideas. But of course, I mean, Europe is a liberal democracy, taking always baby steps. We know that is our problem. So how to get there, that we actually can do these kinds of decisions, that we take some kind of bold action. So that is the question. But definitely, I think that the idea that and also going back to the history, that how the big car companies actually were born. So it's very important to remind us that these things have not happened just like that the private sector just does something and then something actually happens, but the public sector and the government ownership actually has a big role there, and that is very important. So that is a very good thing to discuss, that how we could make happen, so that they are not like always against each other somehow, like they nowadays seem to be, the public and the private side, quite often.
But I think the big issue, and you're in on that also, Sampo, is the FRAND principle. I mean, as long as public transport is closing the not giving money for third parties to sell their tickets, then there's nothing there. I mean, and then there's no investment, because in reality you really need some revenue going in your big companies, because otherwise there's no lions that wants to invest.
It's a bit like EMV. We all know that somewhere there's a fee of doing the payments, and everything has a thing like that. With this one, it's been even a bad decision would be a good one if it's then on EU level. But this is decided in so many different levels and in so weird formats that it makes the whole thing uninvestable. My dream really is that public transport, the network, would be like, like iOS, to build all the great apps and stuff on top, and it's nowhere near. Physically, it's there. Digitally, not.
Shall we take the two questions in the chat as well?
Yeah, I don't know. Ole, would you like to put it forward?
Will you read it, Søren?
Yeah, I was just asking Ole if he wants to come online and put the question live.
Maybe that's why I wrote it in the chat.
Okay.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Hi, Sampo. Long time ago. I just thought about this ecosystem and players that have a commercial business model that could be an ecosystem gravitation point. Just wondering your view and experience of talking to Transdev and Keolix and the commercial companies that are running the backbone public transport networks in a number of cities and have a commercial business model, have relations with many players in the ecosystem already. What's your view on that?
Love the idea, but nowhere close to realism. Both of them have fiddled around with B2C and understood that they can't do it, and are more or less. I know Transdev is fully on now at B2G, and then there's a reason it's very hard to combine both of these, and due to how they are running the BT with kind of straps on all the time means that they're not really equipped, even though they have a lot of capacity, understanding and capabilities, but with current structure and maybe also due to too big ownership by the public side, they cannot take on such a risk of consumers at the moment. But might be a good backbone for creating actual champions in a different format. But with how it is, it's very hard to jump from a B2G company to a B2C company. Even the sheer logic of everything is so different.
So in an ecosystem, one player does not have to take all roles. I'm just thinking that there might be one gravitation point and play an important role. Interesting to hear your view. Thank you.
But I think that hasn't one of those companies been active in tried to do something in Stockholm? Travis was doing something in Stockholm, which they kind of stopped again.
Yeah,
so
I know that case quite well, and like I said, at the moment, very uninvestable market due to several reasons. That it is not clearly defined by public in a broad enough scale, meaning not city by city, but preferably at least the Nordic area, preferably the whole EU, how this market should be run. It's very hard to make a private money investment decisions into something like this that is probably here and there, and especially with the relationship with the public players. And I know this was very harsh to say, but the Nordic market is the most uninvestable for private money at the moment.
Well, Johanna, there you have a tough game here.
Yes, I don't dare to ask you my question here, but maybe I will have a chat with you in private. I think you know my question.
So,
but yeah.
So there's also a comment from Tor Rune Skoglund. Tor, would you like to put it on live? Or is the question obvious?
The commercialization of Mentor, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So Lars, could you come with a few comments on Tor's question? That is, should Entour be commercialized, allowing private investors into Entour? It might be better for your bosses to tell it, but would that make a difference?
I don't think at the moment that's what's stopping us.
You're getting,
so we
that's
are,
also
we are
my opinion.
So we are funded to a level where we can do our tasks efficiently, and we are not hindered by staff or budget at the moment. Not at a large level, at least. It's always nice to have more funding or more investment into your company, but at the moment it is more about standards and data sharing and common API specifications and a lot of the legislation around Europe, which makes it difficult to expand or to collaborate more efficiently.
But I also think even with what you're doing right now, you can indeed cover the whole Nordics. So in reality, you could become one of the Nordics. The whole idea we have here, at least in our little ecosystem, is that there would be a Danish entity that is doing it on behalf of the Danes towards the Nordics, and maybe further down in Germany, and same for Sweden, same for Finland. So So we actually are pretty close, but you're right. What is really our limiting factor is commercial agreements and common standards. That is in reality what is stopping us. And then we're not trying to do anything here that is. I mean, we're doing something here which is maybe not normal for big enterprises. Is that everything we're doing is open. So that's even a big entity could pick it up and use it.
Should we, Søren, take the final question from Pirkka that has his hand up, and then do a closure because of the time?
Yeah, let's. Yeah, I think we're getting close. So, Pirkka, would you like to come on? And yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for the very good discussion here. And I believe Entur in this case is a bit different story because there's a commission embedded into the system at the moment by the government already. So it is what Sampo proposed here for the commission, kind of. But a question to Lars Thure as well. Did I understand the algorithm correctly, what Entur runs at the moment? And it is actually aligned with these front policies, kind of, that if a person from Hammerfest, for example, would like to go to Copenhagen, is the algorithm always via Oslo?
So at the moment, the OTP or the journey planner that we are using would try to give you the fastest fastest journey, or the best journey for you to take.
Okay.
And then you can also to switch up on the parameters to allow a broader scope of journeys, which could include traveling through Sweden, for example, if that is faster. At the moment, we can't sell the northern part of Sweden, but we are working on integrating that part as well. So, for example, if you go to the topmost of Norway, to Narvik or something, then it would be obvious to go to Narvik to Kiruna and do the Swedish side down to Europe instead.
Okay, very good. Because I understood that you try to do as long a journey as possible along your route before seeking for other Nordic options, but clearly that's something that the front policies also require, that you don't prioritize your services too much. I believe that's baked in there as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and that's in maybe we're not put enough focus on this, but we do in fact. Entur has already made a Nordic travel planner in the Open Trip Planner, which basically have all the routes in the Nordics. So I can make a travel plan from basically any station and bus stop to any station and bus stop in the Nordics, and it will come up with a travel plan and several that you can choose between. So there are no. We're not trying. Our Entur is not trying to put someone on top of others just for other reasons than convenience for the end user. That's the idea, and that's how it should be, and that's in reality what's in the MMTIS regulation. So I think, yeah, you can read Marco's comment there, but otherwise I think we're coming to a close of this session. Thank you very much, Sampo, for giving your insight, and we'll see how far we can come in our little project, and we would be happy to entertain being one of the big three in your future. So thank you very much, Sampo, and thanks to Lars Thure and Johanna from the project, and back to you, Jenny.
Well, I will actually give back to Hanne.
And I can join you in thanking all the good contributions in this webinar. I draw my conclusions from this that the cooperation is still key for getting where we want to go. and cooperation between private actors, public actors, and both together, and all because we need to meet the customers' needs. And by doing that, we could reach also the sustainability goals. I still see a need for us people to go to work tomorrow and the day after. There are still work to do. Fortunately, the Nemu project has still 2 years left, and the working on standardization and common data models, of course. We have reached some good results with Norway to Copenhagen and soon Helsinki to Stockholm. And as a Norwegian, it's of course nice to say that this time we need to carry Sweden along with us to make sure they will not get into be left behind. Usually Sweden is the big brother, so that's also nice to state that this time Norway and Finland is leading the way. We, of course, need to put some common goals, and we have that in the Nordics, and they should be also more visible on the European level. I noticed that there are some participants here from other European countries, so please be inspired by the Nordics. And I draw from you, Sampo, the 3 I's: investment, integration, and incentives, and of course making the retail market. But most of all, we need action, and that is needed from all perspectives of this webinar. There will be more webinars in the Nemu project. Please follow the itsnordicplus.com to see when they will be and the topics for them. And by that, I wish you all a pleasant Tuesday, and thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye, guys and dolls.